The year is 1945. The world holds its breath as the final, desperate battles of a global cataclysm unfold. From the rubble of Berlin to the shores of Iwo Jima, humanity is witnessing the end of an era defined by unparalleled destruction and sacrifice. This wasn't just a war. It was a crucible that forged the modern world. How did it begin? What were the critical moments that decided the fate of nations? And why, decades later, do the echoes of World War II still shape our lives today? Join us as we unravel the complete timeline of the most significant conflict in human history. To understand the eruption of World War II, we must first look at the ashes of World War I. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, was meant to bring peace. Instead, its harsh terms, including massive reparations and the infamous War Guilt Clause, planted seeds of resentment in Germany. The global economic collapse of the Great Depression in the 1930s further destabilized the world, creating fertile ground for radical ideologies. In Germany, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party rose to power, promising to restore national pride. In Italy, Benito Mussolini's fascism glorified expansion. And in Japan, a militaristic government pursued an aggressive imperialist agenda in Asia. The first domino fell in the East. On September 18, 1931, Japan staged the Mukden Incident, a pretext to invade Manchuria, creating the puppet state of Manchukuo. This act of aggression was met with little more than condemnation from the League of Nations, emboldening expansionist powers. In 1937, the conflict escalated into a full-scale war between Japan and China, beginning with the Marco Polo Bridge incident. This brutal conflict, often called the Second Sino-Japanese War, is considered by many historians to be the true start of World War II in Asia. Meanwhile, in Europe, Hitler began systematically dismantling the post-World War I order. In 1936, he reoccupied the Rhineland. In March 1938, Germany annexed Austria in the Anschluss. The world watched, paralyzed by the fear of another Great War. This policy of appeasement climaxed in September 1938 with the Munich Agreement, where Britain and France allowed Germany to annex the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia, hoping to satisfy Hitler's ambitions. Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain famously declared peace for our time. It was a peace that would last less than a year. The illusion of peace shattered on September 1, 1939. At dawn, German forces invaded Poland, unleashing a new form of warfare, the Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War. This combined air power, tanks, and infantry with devastating speed and coordination. In response, Britain and France, honoring their alliance with Poland, declared war on Germany 2 days later, on September 3rd. World War II in Europe had officially begun. The Soviet Union, having signed the shocking Molotov-Ribbentrop non-aggression pact with Germany just weeks earlier, invaded eastern Poland, carving up the nation between the two totalitarian powers. The winter of 1939–1940 was deceptively quiet on the Western Front, a period known as the Phony War. But in the spring of 1940, the German war machine roared back to life. In April, Germany invaded Denmark and Norway. Then, on May 10th, Hitler launched his long-awaited offensive in the west, bypassing the fortified Maginot Line by invading through the dense Ardennes forest. The Allied forces were caught completely by surprise. The Netherlands and Belgium fell quickly. British and French troops were pushed to the coast, trapped at the port of Dunkirk. In a miraculous feat of improvisation, a flotilla of over 800 naval vessels and civilian boats evacuated more than 338,000 soldiers across the English Channel. It was a stunning rescue, but it couldn't hide the reality. France was on the brink of collapse. On June 22, 1940, France surrendered. Hitler stood victorious in Paris, and Great Britain, now led by the defiant Winston Churchill, stood alone. With continental Europe under his control, Hitler turned his attention to the skies over Britain. The Battle of Britain, from July to October 1940, was a pivotal air campaign. The the German Luftwaffe sought to gain air superiority as a prelude to a sea invasion. Operation Sea Lion. But the pilots of Britain's Royal Air Force, aided by radar technology and fighting with incredible courage, repelled the German assault. As Churchill famously said, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." The failure to defeat the RAF was Hitler's first major setback. Unable to invade, he resorted to the Blitze, bombing campaign against British cities that terrorized civilians but failed to break their resolve. In a move that would fundamentally alter the course of the war, Hitler made his most fateful decision. On June 22, 1941, he broke his pact with Stalin and launched Operation Barbarossa, a massive invasion of the Soviet Union. 3 million German soldiers surged eastward, aiming to conquer the vast territory in a matter of months. Initially, the advance was staggering. The Red Army suffered catastrophic losses, and German forces reached the outskirts of Moscow, but they had underestimated their opponent. The brutal Russian winter set in, halting the German advance just as it had for Napoleon a century earlier. The Soviets, despite their immense losses, rallied. The Eastern Front became the largest and bloodiest theater of war in history, a grinding war of attrition that would consume the bulk of Germany's military strength. While Europe was engulfed in flames, tensions were reaching a boiling point in the Pacific. The United States, officially neutral, had been aiding the Allies through the Lend-Lease Act and had imposed an oil embargo on Japan to curb its expansion. Facing an economic crisis and unwilling to abandon its imperial ambitions, Japan chose war. On December 7, 1941, Japanese carrier-based aircraft launched a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The attack was devastating, sinking or damaging numerous battleships and killing over 2,400 Americans. The next day, President Franklin D. Roosevelt declared it a date which will live in infamy, and the United States officially entered the war. The conflict was now truly global. The year 1942 marked the high tide of Axis expansion, but also the beginning of the turn. In the Pacific, the tide turned in June at the Battle of Midway. In a stunning victory, the U.S. Navy, having cracked Japanese naval codes, sank 4 of Japan's aircraft carriers, crippling its fleet and shifting the naval balance of power. In North Africa, British forces under General Bernard Montgomery defeated Rommel's Afrika Korps at the Second Battle of El Alamein in November. And on the Eastern Front, the German 6th Army became encircled in the city of Stalingrad. The battle for Stalingrad became a symbol of brutal urban warfare. After months of horrific fighting, the German army surrendered in February 1943. It was a catastrophic defeat for Germany and a monumental turning point for the Allies. With the momentum on their side, the Allies went on the offensive. In July 1943, Allied forces invaded Sicily and then mainland Italy, leading to the overthrow of Mussolini. In the vastness of the Atlantic, improved Allied tactics and technology finally won the Battle of the Atlantic, securing the vital supply lines from North America to Britain. And all the while, the strategic bombing campaign against German cities and industrial centers intensified, aiming to cripple the Nazi war economy. The beginning of the end in Europe came on June 6, 1944, D-Day. Operation Overlord was the largest amphibious invasion in history. Over 150,000 Allied soldiers landed on the beaches of Normandy, France. Despite facing fierce German resistance, they established a beachhead. This opened the long-awaited Second Front, forcing Germany to fight a major war on 2 sides. As Allied forces pushed from the west, the Soviets advanced relentlessly from the east. By August, Paris was liberated. That winter, Hitler launched one last desperate gamble in the west, the Battle of the Bulge, but the Allied line held. The final push was on. In early 1945, the Allied armies crossed the Rhine River, entering the heart of Germany. From the east, the Red Army closed in on Berlin. In the ruins of the capital, faced with total defeat, Adolf Hitler committed suicide on April 30th. A week later, on May 8, 1945, Germany unconditionally surrendered. Victory in Europe Day, or V-Day, was celebrated across the Allied world, but the war was not yet over. In the Pacific, the fighting was just as ferocious. Allied forces, led by the United States, executed an island-hopping campaign, capturing key islands one by one in bloody battles like Iwo Jima and Okinawa. The fierce Japanese resistance, including the use of kamikaze pilots, demonstrated that an invasion of the Japanese home islands would result in unimaginable casualties on both sides. Faced with this grim prospect, U.S. President Harry Truman made a controversial and world-altering decision. On August 6, 1945, an American B-29 bomber dropped an atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima. 3 days later, a second bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. The devastation was unprecedented. On August 15th, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender, which was formally signed on September 2, 1945. Aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. After 6 long years, World War II was finally over. The war left behind a world transformed. Over 70 million people had perished. Cities lay in ruins, and entire nations were bankrupt. The Holocaust, the systematic genocide of 6 million Jews and millions of others by the Nazi regime, revealed a capacity for human evil that scarred the conscience of the world. In the aftermath, the world order was redrawn. The United Nations was formed to prevent future global conflicts. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as two competing superpowers, setting the stage for the decades-long Cold War. The European empires crumbled, sparking movements for independence across Asia and Africa. The timeline of World War II is more than a list of dates and battles. It's a story of ideology, ambition, sacrifice, and the enduring struggle between tyranny and freedom. Understanding this history is crucial, as its lessons on diplomacy, extremism, and human rights continue to resonate in the challenges we face today. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of history's most defining chapters. If you found this video informative, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the past. What part of World War II do you find most compelling? Let us know in the comments below. Till next time.